Hi there. Welcome to our study questions for the week beginning the 15th of November. And just before we get started, I have a question for you just to chat with whoever you're Zooming with today. And that is, can you think of a time when someone showed you practical care in a way that was especially meaningful for you? A time when someone cared for you in a way that was practical, that was particularly meaningful. And can you share that experience with whoever you're with now and say why it was meaningful for you? And so you might pause the video for a moment and then have that chat. And when you're ready, resume the video again. We're going to have our passage from Sunday, John 13, verses 1 to 7, read for us by Heather. Now, and as Heather reads the passage, I want us to try and put ourselves into the situation, put ourselves into the place of being maybe one of the disciples. Supper is about to start. No one has offered to wash your feet. You've been out all day in a very hot and dusty environment. Your feet are kind of sweaty and manky and dirty. No one's offered to wash your feet. But as you get ready for the meal, you're in the upper room. What do you see around you? What do you hear? Try and use your imagination to inject yourself into the situation. What do you smell? How do you feel? Is it hot? Is it cold? Can you smell the food? Do you maybe smell sweaty feet? What's the atmosphere in the room like? Now, we don't know all the answers to all these questions, but to consider them as we listen to the passage being read can help to immerse us into the passage rather than just being readers of it. So let's just try and do that as we listen to Heather reading the passage for us one more time.
This is a reading from John chapter 13, verses 1 to 17. Jesus washes his disciples' feet. It was just before the Passover feast, and Jesus knew that the time had come for him to leave this world and to go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. The evening meal was being served, and the devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, son of Simon, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was now returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel round his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped round him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." "No," said Peter, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." "Then, Lord," Simon Peter replied, "not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Jesus answered, "A person who has had a bath needs only to wash his feet. His whole body is clean. And you are clean, though not every one of you." For he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said not everyone was clean. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them."
Lovely. So, what were your impressions as you put yourself, excuse me, into the meal? And you know, what did you hear? What did you smell? What did you feel? What was the room like? Was it too hot? Was it too cold? Take a few minutes just to discuss what were your impressions of being part of that meal. So pause the video and chat amongst yourselves. We spoke on Sunday about the sense of feeling a bit overwhelmed at times with all the need that we see and that we hear about on social media, on TV, in leaflets coming through our door, or whatever. What are some of the things or circumstances of life for us in 21st century Ireland that make it difficult for us to meet all the needs that we hear about? What are some of the reasons we might not respond as we'd like to all the needs that we encounter? So why don't you pause the video and have a chat about that? The majority of times that the Bible talks about God's people practically caring for others, most times they're called to care for brothers or sisters in Christ. How do you feel about that? Did that surprise you? Do you agree with it? Should we care for all people indiscriminately, or should we be looking to care for our own as a priority? Have a chat about that amongst yourselves and pause the video as you do. What are some ways that the church might be better able to practically care for its members who need help? What are some ways that the church, Swords Baptist Church, might be able to better practically care for its members who need help? And if you come up with any ideas, maybe put them in the comments of this video on YouTube, or share them with us. We'd love to hear about them. So pause the video and have a chat about that. Why don't you take a few minutes to reflect on Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 and 29. Jesus says there, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." How might these couple of verses help us as we deal with all the need that comes our way? How might this passage help us? So pause and discuss. Come now to the end of our time, and invite you just to pray together as a group. Maybe spend some time praying that God would help you to respond as Jesus did to the need that he encountered. That God help us to be generous, to be humble, to be servant-like, but not to be burdened at the same time. So pray about that. Also, Sunday last was International Day of Prayer for the Persecuted Church. So maybe take some time as well to pray for Christian brothers and sisters around the world who are persecuted for their faith. Bye now. See you next week.